As was statistically inevitable, a Tesla Cybertruck has been involved in a pretty significant accident. And fortunately, it seems like everyone involved was basically uninjured, but this does raise some really interesting questions. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am going to combine several sources here just so that you can take a look at different angles on things. There aren't that many pictures or videos, but we do have one video and 3 pictures that show most of what happened in the event. Unfortunately, the front left side of the Cybertruck is the one part that we really can't see, but we'll just do what we can. So anyway, I'm going to walk through this incident first of all. So here we have a recording, and you can see that this was the 28th of December at 4:07 p.m. local time. This would be in Redwood City, which is near Palo Alto, near Fremont. And from what I understand, this was not a consumer-owned vehicle, but an employee-owned vehicle. So this was somebody at Tesla who was driving this Cybertruck and had the unfortunate accident. Was definitely not their fault. I'll get into that in a second. But anyway, I just want to show this. This is a person driving up after the accident, of course. And this gives us a little perspective on what was going on. So the other party involved with, and the fault of the person who caused the accident, was apparently a 17-year-old person who was driving a Toyota Camry and crossed the double yellow line into the Cybertruck and crashed into them. And so first of all, note that this is Central California. This is a winding back road, and it's, it's one of those things, especially if there's a little dampness on the road or something like that, could be quite slippery. And so you could obviously have problems if you're not that familiar with it. And if you're not a particularly good driver, and I have a 16-year-old boy right now and have 3 others who were 16 and 17-year-old boys. And I know that sometimes they assume that their ability of driving is a little bit better than it actually might be. So anyway, playing this video, you can see here somebody's walking up, and the front end of the Toyota Camry looks really, really rough. This was obviously a head-on collision, and the Toyota did not do well. It is remarkable. It sounds like the kid who was involved in this, the 17-year-old, was not even injured. This is just a testament to modern cars, honestly. If you talk about a head-on collision at any kind of speed, back in the day, there's been 3 cars involved in totaled accidents in my family history. One of them was mine, and that was before the day of airbags, and it was terrifying. I was on a highway, 55 miles an hour highway, and a drunk driver, just went right through a stoplight and just blew out right in front of me. Crashed into the car. I was doing 55, and it was terrifying. But of course, without airbags, I was in very grave risk of being, very, very badly injured or perhaps fatally injured. Both of the accidents that have happened with my children that have totaled out their vehicles, fortunately, have been with more modern vehicles with airbags, and they were all fine. They weren't injured much at all, if anything. So again, the first takeaway of this whole thing is thank goodness for modern safety standards and for airbags and such. And you can see the white airbags have deployed on the Camry around the driver to keep him safe as this happened. But the big thing to notice is here, the vehicle, the collision must have happened somewhere up where this truck is, somewhere here, and the Cybertruck is even beyond that. And the car kept on going and must have kind of spun out and ended up over here at the end of the accident. But as we drive by, you can see the distance here, right? And there's a skid mark and everything, and then the Cybertruck is way up here. So they collided and they kept on going for a period of time, thank goodness, because again, the longer that the energy takes to dissipate, the better. So the worst kind of accident is the one where the collision happens and you immediately stop. If there's any kind of roll afterwards, that's actually a very good thing. But anyway, you can see the Cybertruck up here, and you can see the side curtain airbag is deployed. From the other view that we can see, the side curtain airbag is absolutely monstrous in this thing. And apparently there were 3 people in the Cybertruck. There was the driver and 2 passengers. And as far as we know, the collision took place on the driver's left side of the Cybertruck, and therefore it must have been kind of the right side of the Toyota Camry, and they must have then pivoted and spun after that to end up where they did. And then you can see the person driving by the California Highway Patrol and going past, and we're going to get a better view of this in just a second, but you can see the basic scenario of the accident here is pretty well revealed. So anyway, you're coming up, you got a windy road. The collision took place somewhere around where that truck is up there, the dump truck sort of looking thing. And then the Toyota kept going this direction and the Tesla kept going this direction. And next, let's turn to Reddit, and I would leave links to this stuff in the description. And this is the California Highway Patrol's summary of the accident. The CHP summary of the accident. On December 28th, 2023 at approximately 2:05 p.m. So it did say 16:05 on the actual dash cam. So I guess maybe the person was there 2 hours later, or the dash cam had incorrect time. But anyway, looks like it was 2:05 when this actually happened. So maybe that person's dash cam was off off and wasn't correct timing. CHP Redwood City units were dispatched to a two-vehicle crash on State Route 35 Skyline Boulevard south of Page Mill Road. Our preliminary investigation indicates a Toyota Corolla was traveling south on SR 35 southbound, south of Page Mill Road at an unknown speed when the driver, for unknown reasons, turned to the right and subsequently struck a dirt embankment on the right shoulder. The Toyota then re-entered the roadway, crossed over the double yellow lines into the northbound lane, and crashed into a Tesla Cybertruck traveling north on SR 35 northbound. The Tesla driver sustained a suspected minor injury and declined medical transportation. No other injuries were reported. It does not appear that the Tesla Cybertruck was being operated in autonomous mode. The investigation into this incident is ongoing. And just to fill out some of the details, a Business Insider article states that a Toyota Corolla was reportedly driven by a 17-year-old, and that was who hit the Cybertruck. And that there was a driver and two passengers inside the Cybertruck, so 4 people involved in the accident, but only the driver reportedly sustained minor injuries. All right, so now let's take a look at the images, and they're not the most high-res images in the world, but they get the point across here. So this is the front of the Toyota Camry, and you can see that the primary part of the collision was here on the driver's left-hand side. So clearly the left-hand side of the Camry hit the left-hand side of the Cybertruck. The two vehicles then must have spun like this, and the Camry continued spinning and ended up face out on the side of the road, whereas the Cybertruck spun and went off on the other side. So they ended up on opposite sides as they did a little dance in the middle of this whole thing. Also, quite obviously, the Camry is totaled out, completely ruined. This car's never going to drive again. It's going to be towed to a junkyard, and that's where it's going to remain. The Cybertruck, on the other hand, looks like it's in very good condition on the right-hand side of the vehicle here, where on the opposite side, we're traveling southbound down the road at this point now instead of northbound where the video was taken. So we're seeing the clean side of the Cybertruck that was not damaged, and obviously there was no damage to that, and everything looks fine with the Cybertruck from this angle. And again, from this angle, you can see just how large that side curtain airbag is. The thing is really big, and it's a sort of teal color instead of white, interestingly enough. And then finally, as far as I could find, here's the last picture we have of the Cybertruck. This is the left-hand side of the vehicle. Unfortunately, not the front, but the rear part of it, obviously. And the Toyota would have struck up in this area, and then obviously what it did was it scraped down the Cybertruck as it was going past it, and they probably both spun out as that was happening. So some interesting things here. Number one, the plastic is completely ruined around the Cybertruck. Obviously, that part would be the fragile part that would go quickly. The stainless steel on the door, it looks like that was opened, and so maybe that's open at this point. But the rear part, you can see that there is some indentation here. Interestingly enough, that the tire actually seems to have survived. So it looks like it's not flat, and it looks like it would still be capable of driving. Unclear what the front tire would be like. That tire might be flat, and so it might not be able to drive on this thing, but it looks like from this that we have kind of surface level damage to the vehicle, but possibly not internal level damage. So from the pictures we're able to see, obviously the Toyota was much more damaged than the Tesla was, but again, thank goodness, it sounds like everybody was okay, including the driver of the Camry, because that car looked like it was in really, really bad shape, and it's very impressive that no one was hurt in that vehicle. And of course, the Cybertruck was damaged as well and deployed its airbags, but certainly not nearly as damaged as the Toyota, and that makes complete sense because it probably weighs somewhere around 1.5 to 2 times what the Camry does. So that's the details we have at this point, but this brings up a really interesting couple of questions. Number one is, how much is this thing going to cost to repair, assuming that they repair it? So if they take it to the shop and they decide to repair it, or if this happened to you as a Cybertruck owner and, State Farm or Allstate or whoever your insurance company was, or Tesla, whoever that was, what would this cost them to fix the vehicle should they want to go and fix it? And the interesting part about this right now is that, nobody knows, because we don't have parts. We don't have side panels. We don't have access to those plastic things. As far as I know, Tesla is not selling this stuff externally at this point to body shops to have them be able to repair these things. So we don't know. Is this back sail panel, for example, is that $1,000, $10,000? We have no idea the cost of these kinds of things. The plastic parts, I assume, are not probably terribly expensive, but of course it also hit the charging port area, and we had our Model 3 was damaged near the charging port, and that made it much more expensive than if it had been damaged on the opposite side rear quarter panel. So these kinds of things are really interesting questions. I won't even hazard a guess as to how much it would cost to repair this vehicle if the car is still drivable. And the if this is repairable question is really interesting too. So generally speaking, if the car's airbags deploy more than one of them, the car is almost always totaled out by the insurance company. But this vehicle, let's say it's a Foundation Series. I know this was probably an employee version of the vehicle, so maybe a little bit less money. But let's say we're talking about a $100,000 vehicle. If the car can be repaired for $10,000 to $15,000 for an insurance company, they're going to be way more interested in doing that rather than giving the owner $80,000 or $90,000, with depreciation and everything for the vehicle. So they're probably going to want to repair this if they can. But that then gets down to how tough is the Cybertruck in an accident situation. And the big question, generally speaking, is if the unibody frame has been bent. So if you're in an accident and the underbody of the car bends like this, there's no way you can recover from that. That's just, it makes the car totaled out. You can't drive it properly anymore. You can't bend it back into shape. So that is usually the indication of when you have to total a vehicle, no matter how much it costs to repair it versus the cost of the vehicle. There's just nothing you can do because it's basically like the foundation of your house. You can't rebuild it. But the Cybertruck is built very differently. It's got a front gigacasting, a rear gigacasting, and a structural battery pack underneath it, and then all of these stainless steel panels around it. So this thing is super, super rigid, and it's possible that that underbody frame, that all of that stuff didn't really bend. Now, of course, the odds are with the violence of this collision and the fact that all these airbags were deployed that the front gigacasting, the front motor, all of that stuff is crushed and beyond repair. So, it's very unlikely that they will be able to repair this vehicle. And this, again, it's probably a Tesla-owned vehicle, so they probably won't even bother with it. They'll just scrap it. But if this was a consumer-owned vehicle, it would be really interesting to see what sort of calculus they would do about whether they would go ahead and repair this vehicle or whether they would just go ahead and total it, because it's very expensive for an insurance company. And I imagine that insurance companies probably perked their ears up when they saw this and they were like, ooh, my, how much are we going to charge for a premium for a Cybertruck? Because goodness knows how much it's going to cost to fix these things. So really interesting. My gut is that they probably, due to the violence of the collision, the speed of the collision, the fact that it happened on the front left and everything, and then scraped down the side, we haven't seen the worst of it. In other words, this view that we have of the side of the vehicle is not the part that we would need to see. It would be the front end of the vehicle and how much crushing actually happened there, whether the motor was completely destroyed, whether the front gigacasting would have to be replaced, which it probably would be. I mean, all of these things end up making it so expensive to do that the likelihood is that they would total this out. But it is interesting to think about what sort of level of collision you could have with the Cybertruck before you really would need to total it out rather than repairing the vehicle. I have a feeling this one is too much, but maybe if it had happened at half the speed or something like that, then the Cybertruck could have, limped away and repairs could have been done for, $5,000 or $10,000 to fix the vehicle and have it get back on the road and be perfectly fine. All right. So once again, I'm very, very happy that everyone in the vehicles was fine and it was all good. And that's the most important thing. But this was quite the demonstration of how tough the Cybertruck is compared to other vehicles. And it raises some really interesting questions about insurance and repair costs and repairability, etc. So we'll have to stay tuned for that and see how things go as more and more of these vehicles get out there. Of course, statistically, there will be other accidents, and so we will probably get to find out more about that in the near term. If you happen to work for an insurance company or a body shop or something, let me know in the comments what your thoughts about this are. I would, of course, be very interested to know, and I'm sure the rest of the audience would as well. In the meantime, if you did enjoy this video, please do like it so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon, my YouTube channel members, and of course, my ex-subscribers. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel in any way that you can. And of course, if you want to join any of the teams, just check out the links in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, Success is a Possible Outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a new Tesla, a solar roof, a power wall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.